Good evening. I'm Joe Carbonetta, and from the Pasadena Media Center, this is Arroyo Live. Our program is produced by Pasadena Media to help enrich our community through informative and meaningful conversation. Remember, you can share your comments with us anytime at Arroyo Live at pasadenamedia.org. Researchers estimate that there are currently 32 million Americans living with food allergy, 5.6 million of which are children under the age of 18. The latter equates to 1 in every 13 children, or roughly 2 students in every classroom across the U.S. About 40% of those children are allergic to more than one food. More importantly, more than 40% of children with food allergies, and more than half of the adults, have allergies considered severe, making any reaction a potentially deadly one, a medical event called anaphylaxis. Each year, at least 200,000 people require emergency medical care due to a food related allergic reaction. Of particular concern to scientists is the fact that the numbers continue to increase every year. Between 1997 and 2011, food allergies in children increased by 50%. In roughly that same period, the number of children with tree nut or peanut allergies appears to have more than tripled. And peanut allergies, more often than not, result in severe reactions requiring immediate medical intervention to avoid serious, life threatening complications. But with the rise in food allergies comes a push for more research, leading to more therapies, and perhaps one day a cure. It also is leading to increased awareness as well as new ideas to improve the quality of life for those affected using the technologies currently available. Tonight, I talk with two very special people helping to increase awareness and inspire improvement in understanding and safety for millions of Americans who live with food allergy. Please join me for tonight's edition of Arroyo Live. Tonight, I'm joined by Priscilla Hernandez and Zachary Munoz, parent and child advocates. Thank you both for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Let's get right into perhaps the most important aspect of our conversation this evening, and that is the Zachary bill. Actually, I believe it is called the Zachy bill, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about? Well, you know what? Even before we do that, why don't you both tell us a little bit about yourselves, because that will help to let our audience know why the Zachy bill is so important.
Well, my name is Priscilla Hernandez, and I reside in Pasadena, California, and this is my son here, Zachary, but we call him Zachy. I'm a mom of two boys, and Zachy has food allergies, and that's one of the reasons that we've been so much advocating for food allergy awareness.
All right.
I'm Zachy Munoz, and I'm 10 years old. I just turned 10, and I have food allergy to nuts, shellfish, beans, peas, avocados, sesame, and olives.
That's an impressive list of allergies, I'm afraid. Okay, so let's talk about the Zachy bill. What exactly is the Zachy bill?
Well, the Zachy bill is what it does. It provides a California online resource, food allergy guide that is available through the Department of Education, and it's available through to K through 12, to parents, to kids, to teachers. And essentially what it does is provides uniformed information about what resources are available if you have food allergies, from getting accommodated at the school to avoiding anaphylaxis, and also federal and local guides that are already in place.
I would like to make mention for our viewers at home that on the surface, while this might seem like a relatively isolated situation, food allergies are quite common and, in fact, on the rise.
Yeah.
Certainly, the people at home would not be aware that I myself am a parent of a child with food allergies. He's actually allergic to peanuts. And Priscilla, you and Zachary and I were talking about that off camera before the beginning of the show. So this particular episode hits relatively close to home for
Mhm.
myself as well. So what was the first allergy experience like? And I'd like to ask this question to both of you, actually.
Well, as a mom, I was Zachy was my first. So when he came home and he was experiencing eczema and a couple other things that now before weren't correlated with food allergies, I look back and I realize where it stemmed from. He was fussy and he would often wake up, like I would go to his crib and he would be unfortunately pretty bloody because of all the eczema. And I thought, well, I'll put, mins on him and tried all different kinds of things. And there was a couple of situations when I was feeding him during the duration of him going into solid foods, is that he would have some flare ups and things of that nature. But and throughout the whole period, we would find those things. And at one point, I think it was when he was maybe about 1.5 years old, that we went to the doctor and they said, well, this may be food allergies. Let's do a test of the blood. And then came back, the test had an array of different allergies in the blood. But I think that, to answer your question, when it really impacted us, or when we really saw that, he had food allergies, was probably his first grade year when he had an anaphylactic reaction. And he was at school. I had, been aware of his food allergies, worked with the school and the lunch vendor, telling him what his allergies were. But one day his safe food was switched out for something that he was allergic to, and he had an anaphylactic reaction. And from that day forward, that was probably the most memorable of the experiences, to kind of set the tone of how we, changed our life a little bit in regards to how we look at food and how we handle things. So
Well, when I did have that food allergy, uh, I had some symptoms. My body, I was eating a breadstick. Then my body told me to stop eating it. So I went to the nurse and I had some symptoms. So my mom got me and took me to the emergency room, and I got an EpiPen on my leg.
Yeah, that brings up an interesting point. I was about to ask how severe the allergies were, but you have, in
Mhm.
essence, answered that question. But for our viewers at home that may not be aware of how severe a food allergy can be, you spoke about anaphylaxis, which is about as severe as it can get. Uh, Anaphylaxis really is a life-threatening condition that requires immediate medical intervention. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to explain, perhaps in a little more detail, what it is when someone who has a food allergy goes into anaphylaxis.
Yeah, when somebody has a food allergy that goes into anaphylaxis, I mean, it can impact them in multiple ways, but essentially it inhibits their ability to, whether it restricts their throat that they can't breathe. That's one of the most scariest of all. And so when you start seeing symptoms that are kind of in the face, in this instance, he had when he had his first anaphylactic reaction in school, he was vomiting. He had some issues with his breathing, he said, and a couple of different things like that. And so the only way that you can make that essentially stop, is, or potentially stop is their only response is an epinephrine, which is an EpiPen that would essentially try to like kind of stop that progression. But yes, it's a very serious thing, as you said, Joe. It can, unfortunately lead to a place that you don't want it to lead to. And right now there is no cure for food allergies.
And I think it's also worth noting, you mentioned that the only treatment to try to make it stop, and that's an important thing to recognize there too, because every subsequent exposure results in an elevated reaction to the allergen. So every time you have another episode of anaphylaxis, it is more severe than the previous one. And epinephrine, which is basically a shot of adrenaline, is in itself not it's not a panacea, because while it does stop or it can potentially stop the reaction, it results in its own array of medical concerns. So once you go into anaphylaxis, you can be given epinephrine to stop the anaphylaxis, but it still means you're going to the hospital because they will need to observe you for a couple of days afterward.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that's why also when you get those the EpiPens come in packs of 2, and there's a reason for that. It's not to split it up. It's actually that, the first one may not be enough and you need to do a second. And there's been situations that you need to do multiple, and then there has to be, like you said, a follow-up. And Zachy, in that situation, he was given the epinephrine, he was taken to the emergency, and then he had steroids after that. And there's a series of things for his body to kind of go back to where it is. So you're right.
So, again, how old was Zachy when he first became aware of the life-threatening reactions?
How old were you?
Well, when I
Right.
had that electrocution, I was in first grade. I think I was either 6 or 7.
Yeah, but I think that more than anything, one of the things with food allergies, and as a parent, you have to teach them that they have to be aware of it. So Zachy was aware of the list that he gave you when he was in preschool and kinder. So he was 5 years old, listing out his allergies and being aware of it.
That does
You're
bring
that young.
It's a very, very good point. And again, you hit the nail on the head there. Again, as a parent myself of a child who at this time is only 11 years old, and he became
Mhm.
aware of it after his second birthday. That's when we all learned. He has to maintain a list of do's and don'ts.
Mhm.
In my case, there's only one item that he's allergic to, and that is peanuts. But it is, of course, a very, very severe allergy. People may not be aware that there are classes of allergy. In the case of my son, he is class 5. There are only 6 classes, 6 being the worst. Those people can't even be in the room with a peanut.
Yeah.
My son is just below that, but he literally has to read the labeling on everything that he touches before he even touches it, because anything could result in an anaphylactic reaction. And
Mhm.
it complicates your life when you try to go out to a restaurant, for example, or even just over to a friend's house for dinner. Most people who don't deal with food allergies don't give a second thought to what they eat, except whether or not they happen to like the food that's presented to them. But
Mhm.
an individual with a food allergy has to be concerned about whether this may be a life-threatening item that you are holding.
Yeah, it can be pretty scary.
Um, Something else, and the reason I was inquiring about your age, Zachy, when you first found out that you had these potentially life-threatening allergies, we talked about the EpiPen, which is actually a brand name for an auto-injector for epinephrine. But there are only a
Mhm.
couple of companies that manufacture these. Very recently, there was a recall on an entire lot of one of those 2 brands, resulting in the other one being the only one available, and the price skyrocketed on those.
Mhm.
Even when that wasn't the case, these are very, very expensive medications. Uh,
Mhm.
that's that's got to be a concern for you as a parent as well.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, it is a concern. Luckily, with insurances and things like that, that helps. But not everybody's in that situation, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, this is a life saving mechanism that if you have this life threatening situation, that you should absolutely have access to, and pricing shouldn't be the barrier to get there.
Again, having been through, and unfortunately, my suspicion is, and again, this will be based on my own personal experience as well as others that I have spoken to with similar circumstances. Generally, one finds out that their child has an allergy. In fact, I would guess that anyone with an allergy finds out only after they've had their first accidental reaction by ingesting
Mhm.
something that they didn't realize they were allergic to. What advice do you have for parents that might be dealing with this kind of a situation?
Well, I mean, what I would suggest, I mean, from an early age, like when they're babies, this is not, there's later onset food allergies that I've learned, but for the most part, if your child kind of has some symptoms that are now known, like I said, he had eczema and things of that nature, I would go to the pediatrician. I bring it to their attention. There's blood tests, there's skin tests, as you know, and then they can really determine if your child has some kind of food allergy that you haven't introduced them to, so you won't have a traumatic experience. Maybe you can foresee that, or at least do something about it. In addition to that, like I think we were talking about earlier, is that, there's things that we have now that maybe a couple of years ago we didn't have, and they're small things, but they're big in being able to kind of, see if we can not necessarily change things, but like, prepare for things. And like early introduction is one of those things that now doctors are saying that, we potentially should do. Before, the way you handled kids or babies is that you didn't introduce foods at a certain time, and now they're saying the opposite. So I guess my answer to that is, talk to your pediatrician, do your research, ask the questions, and it will equip you better.
All right. Well, swinging back over to the Zaki bill, this is really targeted toward getting or increasing awareness at the school level. Is that correct?
Mhm. It's a K through 12. So what it would, as I mentioned, it would ensure that the Department of Education makes it accessible, this information. How we came about it was, Zaki had his incident, and we started, looking at how we were going to be able to allow him to start eating and feeling comfortable, and what communication we needed to do within our school. But then I also run a nonprofit organization that deals with youth in certain communities, and I started looking at it through that lens and saying, like, how, what kind of what kind of information is uniformed amongst all the schools. And we found out there wasn't much uniformed information in regards to food allergies. So that's how this bill kind of unfolded and got to where it was. So the bill would affect K through 12. So every year, the parents would have access to be able to find the best information for their child at school.
Well, you anticipated my next question, which was that's what made you reach out to the schools. How receptive has the school system been to this?
So I mean, from what I've heard from the parents, and parents, this is something that's been embraced. I mean, as we've traveled this journey with the bill, I think it's been pretty embraced in the sense that it's for the kids. It's something that, it shouldn't be. It's not about anything other than ensuring their safety. I mean, right now we're just kind of getting out of COVID, and we have realized that safety should be at the forefront of a lot of things that we do, and we're practicing it. And what a perfect timing to have, to make sure that our kids with food allergies are also protected, or at least, given the tools that they could in order to protect themselves the most they could. Right?
Yeah.
So, Zaki, has this made you something of a celebrity around school? Or are the students that you go to school with aware of your efforts to get this bill passed?
Well, actually, not really. My friends know, but once it hopefully becomes a law, they'll probably know.
I think a lot of his friends know about his food allergies and your advocacy.
Well, the food allergies and everything. Yep. I represent food allergies a lot in my school.
Well, do they help you? Do you find your friends help look out for you when you're at school? Do they take the initiative and ask whether something is safe for you to eat?
Well, actually, yes. Sometimes I'll sit with friends and I'll say, "Hey, Zaki, I have peanuts," and sometimes they'll move because just to be nice, or or one of my friends says, "Hey, they see somebody with peanut butter and ask to move away," which is very kind.
And that's important again to point out because especially where peanut allergies are concerned, but quite probably with all food allergies, um, peanuts are an interesting lot because they have an oil to them. And so if you've touched a peanut, you get the oil on your fingers. And so then if you go and touch something else, that oil gets deposited. And it's entirely possible to cause someone to have an anaphylactic reaction simply because you touched something that they will later touch after you have touched a peanut product. And many people aren't aware that it is that easy to cause someone with food allergies to have a severe reaction.
That is very possible to happen.
Yeah, cross contamination and cross contact is something that, depending on the severity of your allergy, Zachy has a spectrum of all those lists that he mentioned, that there's some that are just pretty high up there that we have to be extra careful. And then there's also, it's just you just gotta have to be aware of what your allergies and know that it's not just the food, it might be the things that are around you.
Well, have you received much publicity so far in your effort to get this bill passed?
Well, tell me what you've done.
Well, I've gone to Sacramento to talk to the legislator, and they passed the bill. So far, it's a little more than past halfway, becoming law, and we're super happy about that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I believe we have a video clip to show of that, and I think we will go ahead and do that now and be back in just a moment.
Thank you. Hello, Board Committee. My name is Zachy Munoz, and I'm here to represent AB 2640, the Zachy Bill. AB 2640 will provide an online resource guide for food allergies for kids and adults. It will show what resources are available, what to do if you have food allergies, and how to prevent anaphylaxis. This is important because we kids rely on information, ingredients lists, and our adults just knowing what to do for us. We just want to feel safe and included at school. Food allergies are not fun, and getting EpiPen is even worse. Trust me, I know. But this guide will show that our school cares and just wants to make us feel included. And I think it could and will be better with AB 2640. Thank you for being our voices here in Sacramento and making sure the kids with food allergies in school have the most proper and dedicated information possible. In conclusion, I ask you to pass AB 2640 at a committee today for all the kids in California. Thank you for your time.
Well done, well done.
So, what was it like going up there to speak?
Well, I was kind of nervous, but so excited. I was anxious to see what the response would be, and I was just happy to represent kids with food allergies.
And was it exciting to meet Assemblyman Holden and Senator Portantino?
It was so exciting. They were both so nice, and they were so awesome. And it was so exciting and an honor to meet them.
They taught you some cool handshakes, huh?
Yeah, and they taught me a cool handshake. They taught me the Star Wars and and the shark.
And Senator Portantino was giving them all the coolest handshakes, and then Assemblymember Holden took them into the chambers and was really, showing them around. So it was really nice to have our representation there and greeting us and listening to Zachy about the Zachy Bill.
Well, Zachy, you in talking with you right now, you certainly sound like an everyday, average, normal 10-year-old boy, and certainly there's no reason you shouldn't. But it's my understanding that in some interviews you have called yourself different, and I'm wondering if you could take a little bit of time to explain what you mean by that.
I am having food allergies is different. Sometimes you can't sit with your friends, or you have to move places so you could just get allergic action like that, not knowing what happened, or just get it. But being different isn't bad. It's great to be different. It's great to be unique, and being different is not bad at all.
You know what? I want to ask this question. You mentioned a little earlier that you have had to have epinephrine administered as the result of an anaphylactic episode. Have you ever had to use the auto injectors yourself?
Well, no, luckily. I have not, but I have a training EpiPen if I ever do need to do it, so I just practice it sometimes.
So,
But
what
luckily
was it
enough
like
that I didn't have to do it
going
because
up
we
there
have
to
trained
speak?
professionals.
That is a very good thing. Do your friends know how to use one if they had to help you?
Unfortunately, no. I don't think many kids know how to use an EpiPen, except they are trained. But I go to places where there's usually somebody that can help me. So I'm very fortunate of that.
And we've also tried to create awareness. And as Zachy gets older, I know that's also something that we want to do as the kids get older, is create that awareness. And this is part of this journey too. So so we feel confident Zachy's safe, with his friends, and they're always looking out for him on the other end of making sure that he doesn't have any of his allergens when he eats.
Well, how has the knowledge that you have these food allergies changed the way you eat?
Well, when I had my severe allergy reaction, I I had eaten hot lunch again after that because my mom talked to the hot lunch people and they said that they would make sure that it's safe. But then they accidentally got some sesame and probably cross contamination with something else. And then I went to emergency room again. And after that, I had to bring my own hot lunch. It isn't that bad, but sometimes they make some really delicious food. So, and I really want it. So it's kind of sad seeing all my friends having some food, and it kind of makes me feel a little disconcluded.
I think I know what you mean. Again, I have a son who's just about your age, and he certainly has had similar experiences where there are times where at birthday parties or little get-togethers where uh, people are eating something, and no one can adequately explain to my son what the ingredients list is, and so he would prefer to just stay away from it. Err on the side of caution, but I can understand where there would be a feeling of exclusion there.
That's happened to me before.
So one of the things that we try to do though, and what we've been a really active effort, is making things with alternate ingredients and trying to create the same feelings. So recently we made some horchata, which usually is made with he's not allergic to cow's milk, but we try to stay away from things. But we made it with oat milk, and we change out certain ingredients that he's allergic to, and we make it a little fun for us, and it's a project of identifying new foods that we can do, and that's kind of been our way of outlet. And also it just makes us feel empowered, right? It makes Zachy feel empowered that he can make decisions and have things like everybody else, but just maybe a little different.
Well, and that leads me to my next question, which is, have you done any research, and really this is to both of you. Have you done research to look at alternate foods to find out more about the allergies themselves and what research is being done? And have you found any new foods that you really like?
Have you found any new foods?
Oh, actually, I have. I've been actually searching up some foods that might be I can eat, and I found some really tasty ones.
New recipes?
Yep.
What would you say is your favorite?
It was like this cake that it's supposed to be almond cake, but there's an alternative with, I think it was crackers, like honey crackers or something. Graham crackers, I think.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, we do a lot of that. We try to look at alternatives and creative things to make. And one of the things is we've been really actively involved with FAIR, which is Food Allergy Research and Education. It's a international actually organization dedicated to food allergies, and they also have so many resources available and foods. Ingredients and things like that too. So that also helps us out as we do our research on what we can eat and what Zachy can eat.
Well, again, I would have to inquire if you have advice on a best course of action if, uh, for a viewer at home who is a parent, they suspect a food allergy in their child.
Well, I guess I would say that you doing your research and reaching out to those that can identify if they have food allergies. As I mentioned earlier, they have so many tests out there and things of that nature that you can find out about whether your child has food allergies, and then from there you can determine what the best plan of action is. Whether it be there's OIT, which is the giving your child and building a tolerance to certain allergens, and that has helped some families, or just avoidance in general, or or when if they're young enough, then you can start in early introduction. But I think there's multiple plan of actions that can be taken, that you, as I mentioned earlier, can empower yourself to kind of determine how this will go. And it's not, there is no cure for food allergies, but you can live a really fulfilling life, and actually it could be pretty interesting, right, to find new alternatives and things like that, which is kind of really exciting part of that, and a good part of it, I should say. So that would be my answer to that.
There, and I thought I'd take an opportunity to point this out also. You have mentioned a couple times that there are no cures for food allergies. And so often the perception is that with children, where food allergies are concerned, they will or can outgrow the allergies. And for some food allergies, this may be true, but for many of them, again, going back to peanuts and most nuts, people do not
Chocolate.
outgrow those allergies. They actually carry them with the person throughout their entire life.
Yeah, they're lifelong. So yeah, you're right. So that some of the nuts, like peanuts, and well, shellfish is also another one that's one of those that are probably a lifelong. They're from my understanding, but things are changing all the time. But from my understanding is that some things can be outgrown, because I think between adolescence and then when they move on, but those are it's I mean, probably few and far. So I think you treat it accordingly, that it's going to be part of your life, and you just got to make decisions accordingly.
So, Zachy, if you don't mind my asking, what is a typical day like for you when it comes to lunch at school now?
Well, I will usually sit down. I've actually will usually check and see if anybody has nuts at my table to see what they have. If they do, it might be they might ask them to move to a different table, or I'll have to move to a different table. But usually my friends can sometimes help me to get out these food allergies, which is pretty useful and nice. And I eat my lunch. I always make sure to that anybody who had nuts, and ask them to make sure to wash their hands, so no cross contamination.
That's
So to make sure it's extra safe. And I always carry a EpiPen at school too.
Now, you're not actually allowed to carry the EpiPen yourself, though, correct? They keep that with the school nurse.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to like carry it around, like just hold it.
But which is different than, of course, when you're at home, because when you're at home, you actually have to keep that medication with you wherever you go.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. And I got to remind him to keep it with him wherever he goes. And that's always, I think that's a training process. And I think most food allergy parents all relate, right? Yeah. I was like, do you have your EpiPen? Where's your EpiPen? We've taken off down the street, and we're going to go to a restaurant, and we're like, do you have your EpiPen? So we have to turn back around and go get the EpiPen. But it's a training process. It's part of it. It's going to be part of him. So it's good to learn now at a young age.
And I say this half joking and half not, to put it in perspective for our viewers at home who don't themselves suffer from a food allergy or have a child with food allergies. Imagine walking out the door and getting 6 blocks down the street and realizing that you left your mobile phone at home. That's nothing compared to what happens when you go out and realize that you've left your allergy medications.
So true. And that's not just everywhere you go. You're right. Like, so whether it be you're going to go to a restaurant, or he's going to a sporting activity, or anywhere, far, we've been out pretty far, and we're like, oh goodness. So my husband will have to drive back and go get it. Because yeah, it's exactly that. You have to have it with you.
And that's the thing, again, people may not realize this, that you have to be hyper vigilant. It is a 24/7 type of fight, because food allergies don't just affect you when you are eating something. Again, there's that issue of cross contamination in the case of peanuts, and I'll go back to that mostly because my son deals with a peanut allergy. If someone has eaten a peanut product and then touched something, and then my son touches it, puts his finger in his eyes or his nose or his mouth, as kids are wont to do,
Blows up.
you could very easily end up with a severe reaction and you don't even know what caused it.
No, you're absolutely right, right? Sometimes he'll come to me and he has his eye that's like, and he didn't eat anything. We didn't know where it came from. It just happened. And then you have to,
And like sometimes I could touch something with my arm or bonk it by accident, and then the next day I'll have a little hives on it.
yeah, the life of food allergies.
So, Zachy, would you consider yourself, and Priscilla, I'll ask you this as well, do you consider yourselves spokespersons for allergies?
Well, I kind of do. I'm just here to represent food allergies for not just for me, for every kid in California.
And perhaps maybe someday even beyond the borders of California.
Yep. One day, maybe the whole United States.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this journey has kind of made us, well, not made us, it's something we wanted to do, like, tell our story, because I think one of the things that I've learned, and I think I've heard this from other parents and those with food allergies, it can seem like a really lonely road. You don't, especially for myself, like when I had Zachy and I had nobody in my family that had ever had food allergies. And it was something that I wasn't familiar with, and there wasn't a lot of information. But as we've been able to manage it, I've realized there is information. There are groups out there, and given social media, that's been a big part of being able to identify other individuals or other parents that also have food allergies, and then what they do. So I think that by virtue of us going through this whole journey, we have kind of become advocates, and we're proud to be advocates of those with food allergies and what it's like and how we can make it better, right?
Yep.
And you touched on something else that's very important. You noted that Zachy's food allergies are not hereditary, and in fact, most food allergies are not hereditary.
Mhm.
They are random in nature, and so there really isn't a hard and fast predictor of who will be allergic to food items and to what specific food items.
No, you don't. And that's, especially, I mean, there are some situations like that, families have carried on with allergies in general. I have some external allergies. Zachy does too. Like, I think he has grass and a couple other things, and I'm allergic to horses, which is kind of random. Yeah, nothing like this. You have to prepare yourself as it comes along, and you have to just kind of take it as you go, as it comes along, and make your decisions.
Well, you both have mentioned that this has been a very long journey, certainly with respect to dealing with the food allergies, but also with the process of getting this bill to get passed and to raise awareness about food allergies. When did you realize that the effort was first gaining traction?
Well, I think it's so at the very beginning, we were fortunate enough to be able to have a couple groups that were, driven by food allergy awareness, that were supportive of the measure. But then as we introduced it into the legislators really, like, there was, just like yourself, you find people that have kids with food allergies, and it started gaining this momentum. And Zachy going and speaking is really, and articulating what it feels like to have food allergies has been, resonating with a lot of people. Again, going back to social media, like, you've seen people would talk about the bill, and he's gotten hundreds of people liking the concept of the bill. And I think it's just been gaining momentum since the very beginning, because there's a lot of people, like you said, affected by food allergies. There's 32 million Americans affected in the United States. There's a million kids in California that are affected, but that's just the kids alone, K through 12. Food allergies affects the whole family. As you know, it's not just, it's your child, and so the impact resonates so much when you have something like this. And I think we've been seeing that a lot, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I know we
It's
touched
not going to only affect the person, it's going to affect the whole household.
I know we touched upon this a little earlier, but you did mention again speaking before the assembly. And so what led up to you, Zachy, being there to speak in front of the assembly?
Well, the assembly was a big part of the bill passing through. So we just drove up there for a 6 hour, it was actually an 8 hour car drive to Sacramento. I prepared a speech. I practiced it every day, and then the day finally came, and I spoke like I never spoke before.
Were you nervous at all getting up there to speak?
A little, but I was mostly so excited.
And
Well,
prior to it, actually, he was able to talk to a lot of the legislators. So the day before we went up there, when we got there a day before he gave his testimony. And so he spoke to so many legislators, and he was knocking on their doors and their offices and telling them about the details of the bill, right?
Yep.
And that's when he saw Assemblymember Holden and State Senator Portantino, but he was able to meet with a lot of other ones too as well. So
well, it certainly sounds like the experience of a lifetime, but from the way you describe it, Priscilla, it sounds like you already have a junior senator there. Is it, what do you think, Jackie? Are there plans for a political career in your future?
I actually want to be the president of the United States when I grow up. So I probably might be getting into more politics soon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, certainly, getting into the assembly or the Senate, that's a good stepping stone toward the presidency. So, sounds like you've got a head start on that career if that's where you want to go. Well, so can you explain a little bit about the virtual food allergy resource guide? Is it an app? How does it work?
So right now, the way it's written, it's kind of more of a general concept, and the details of it will kind of unfold. But what it does definitely have, it's going to have it according to the bill right now, is it's going to have ways that you can accommodate your child. So in schools they have 504 plans, so they can basically sit down with administrators and say, hey, my child has a severe allergy, and these are the steps that we would like to happen. And then you work with your administrator and kind of develop that plan. Not everybody knows that they can do that, and it might make your life a lot easier when you have that in place, because everybody's on the same page. There's also there's already a federal guideline that's in place too, that would be put onto this website too. So like the federal guidelines that are in place, cross-contamination, all the things that we just spoke about. And it's kind of all in one place. And I think that's the biggest thing with this bill, is essentially it provides a page on the Department of Education that everybody can go to and find the information they need for their child. Otherwise, right now, the way it is, it's pretty difficult. You kind of have to almost have like a law degree to go through all the things and find out how to get your child accommodated. And it shouldn't be that hard. And it's a pretty simple step to take in order to make that happen. And it's been done in other states. So other states have this in place, and it's been successful. So we know that it works, and it's a great tool of information.
But there is an important distinction that I would like to draw here, is that your bill is designed to educate and enlighten. We're not talking about eliminating the allergens from the school menu.
Not at all. No.
We're just talking about giving parents the information about the potential allergens that are there, so that you can take the steps to protect your child. Is that an adequate or fair?
Absolutely. It's not creating anything new. It's just putting everything that's established in one place. And then also making it accessible to people that, like you said, don't have food allergies, but are aware, just aware of the fact. I mean, honestly, food allergies is all about, it takes a community, because what other kind of situation that you have to rely, whether you go out and ask, hey, what is the ingredients, looking through, you have to rely on other people. And if you don't equip other people with just basic information, it's difficult to be able to navigate having food allergies. So that's what this does. It doesn't create something, it doesn't make you not have something. It's just basic information that should be already accessible.
And again, this is targeted mostly toward the school system. But the reason I bring that up is because for years now, there has been a campaign to raise awareness about being able to perform things like CPR for life-threatening emergencies that require such knowledge. Has there been any kind of a push to really, on a nationwide scale, raise awareness about food allergies and the concerns and the potential for harm that comes from these?
I think we've had, well, the most recent national legislation was the FASTER Act, and that put sesame as the 9th allergen. We were actually, Zachy and myself were part of that, help, talk to some of the legislators about pushing that bill. So we're really happy that it happened. But yeah, there's been national efforts, but there's not enough. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot that can be done, not only nationally, but in the state. And this is, even though this isn't a big movement of the needle, it's a huge movement for us in the food allergy community to have something in place. So there's always room for more awareness on in legislation, both nationally and in the state. But these are good starts.
So going back to Zachy and being at school and having a school lunch, is there the potential for him to receive a customized menu? Zachy, do you get to do you get a special lunch where they make sure that your plate is free of allergens, or is it really still up to you to make sure that what is on there that might be a problem you avoid?
Well, I bring my
He brings his own lunch for the most part. I think one of the to answer that question, so he's been bringing his own lunch since the incident, just because of safety. But we eventually want to transition back, and within his own school, I know that I've been and we've both been pretty involved in trying to make changes. They have made changes since Zachy did have that situation, and have been pretty hopefully uh, trying to influence some changes and some recognition of food allergies. So they've become a lot more, I think, enlightened about the situation, as well as trying to accommodate. But it's been a slow process, but eventually we'd like to get him back to having Pizza Friday, because he really looks forward to that.
Well, and I understand exactly how you feel. My son also, he prefers to bring his own lunch, and I think it's largely because he feels certainly safer, more in control of what he is presented with to eat. Certainly, as a parent, as parents, my wife and I have had numerous
Mhm.
conversations with the school. They're certainly aware of his allergy status. He too has an EpiPen, actually,
Yeah.
with the school nurse all the time. And yet, from time to time, there'll be changes in staffing, in the lunch in the cafeteria there at the school, and you sometimes feel like the word doesn't always get around as quickly as you'd like it to. And so, yeah, I completely understand why you would feel more comfortable bringing your own lunch.
And that brings us back to what you're saying. Communication, like you said, sometimes it doesn't go down that chain, and that's why this bill in particular, why we've been so adamant about it, is that essentially that it provides it like one place that we can all go to, because the communication, the telephone communication, often loses those important things, and with food allergies, you can't lose too much information in between. So that's why it's so important to have that communication and that dialogue, and everybody knowing what allergen is an issue, just to make everybody safe, right?
Yep.
And just to show how complicated things can be, I thought I'd make mention also, Zachy, you have a brother, that's correct?
Yep.
And he has none of the food allergies that you have?
At least we're not aware. Well, he can eat beans. We know that for a fact. I'm not sure about nuts yet. We're pretty sure he doesn't, but we're not sure.
We're pretty sure he eats everything. He enjoys it.
This is the same situation for myself. My son has a sister who is 3 years younger
Mhm.
than he is, and she has none of the food allergies at all.
Yeah.
It is almost as if they are two different children from two different parents. She can eat anything and doesn't have to think twice about it. My son has to check everything for peanuts, although his little sister's very good at making sure, just as my son is, she'll go out and ask questions and make sure that there are no peanut products in the food, because she does. She looks out for her big brother.
Mm. Yeah, I think he has his little brother always, even though he's 5 years younger, he's always like, Zachy has allergies. He makes sure that everybody knows, right?
You say like because he's like when I say can I just check my ingredients, it'd be like because my brother has food allergies.
Yeah, he always says that. He's 5 years old, articulating that. So it's interesting when you have two kids. But I think one of the things is you see that as what you mentioned, is that the younger one or the older one, or whoever the sibling is, they're just really sensitive and empathetic to the needs of the child with food allergies. So they'll have something that both of them can enjoy. And it makes it just life easier that way, and for the parents, but also for everybody just getting along.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that as well. Well, so far we have referred to the bill as the Zaki bill, but it actually has a number too. Can
Yeah, so the Zaki bill's AB 2640, and it was presented by Suzette Valadares. She's been wonderful. Her office has been amazing. Yeah, so that's where it is. It just to kind of reiterate, it's just passed out of, so it went to Education Committee, and that's where Zaki testified. Then it went to another committee after that, and it's passed out of the Assembly. Now it's on to the Senate side. And so it'll go through maybe one or two committees, and then it potentially go to the governor's desk, and hopefully will be passed by the end of this year.
Well, see, and once
Fingers
again,
crossed.
you've anticipated my next question, which was going to be, what is next for AB 20?
Oh, yeah. So that's what's next. It's a journey, and it's going to get there one way or the other. But again, we've had really overwhelming embrace by the legislators, and I think that everybody understands it's all about the kids and safety. So we'll probably be up there in Sacramento one more time, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But there's no specific time frame at this point for when this will become law. Or
Well, it'll be the end of this year. So bills, yeah, so it'll be the end of this year sometime, but no specific, but it's been going, through, I think June, it'll be heard maybe in one of the committees, July, so maybe August, September. We're not quite sure, because it depends on how quickly they do it. So that's the timeline we have so far.
Well, I know very early on in the conversation you mentioned that there are approximately 1 million children in the state of California that are afflicted with some type of food allergy. Is that correct?
Roughly about 1 million that we've gathered in California.
And would it surprise you to know that the estimate is closer to 5.6 million across the country?
Nation. Yeah. And I think it's even higher now. I mean, exponentially, it's been growing. I think the statistics was like 377% between 2007, 2016 is what the percentage of how much it's increased with kids or with people with food allergies. So it's something it's definitely growing. And I think that comes out in California, the 1 million is like an estimation, but it's like one in 13 kids have food allergies in a classroom. So it's a lot.
Where can someone go if they'd like to get more information on the Zaki bill?
So we have a website. It's
Zaki's Universe.
It's zakisbill.com
Oh.
or .org. And then we also have a Facebook page, and that's the Zaki bill. And then our Instagram is Zaki's Universe. So we're trying to hit all the different entities. Zaki's _universe is Instagram. So check it out. I try to keep everybody up to date. And Zaki, you'll see him often give his messages about not just the bill, but just about a food allergy awareness. He's done a series of 1 minute just awareness videos that are pretty cool, huh? They're from different subjects. What are the
Like we don't talk about Brenda, but with nuts.
Oh, yeah. So he creates awareness through videos, but also just like talking about intolerances versus actually food allergies and things of that nature. So yeah, if you can check out our website, zakisbill.org.com, and you can get more information. Also, I think the next question probably would be like if you can reach out to your legislators and let them know that this is an important bill, and it's something that impacts not just the kids, but all of us as parents, caregivers, and just us as a society as a whole. So if you can reach out to your legislator, your senator, your state senator would be big, and tell them to support the Zaki bill, that would be amazing.
All right, so I have to ask this then. Does your website offer links so that people can, from your website, reach out to public officials that can be of benefit to this bill?
Absolutely. So it does two things. There's actually a link that I have on there. It says find your legislator, and you can put in your zip code and you'll be able to identify who it is. Because sometimes we just don't know, or or it changes or whatever it may be. But there's also another one that if you actually input your information, and you will be able to, it's a standard sheet that we'll be able to send to your legislator on your behalf as well. So either one. So if you don't want to make the phone call, just put your information, your zip code, and we'll make sure that we let them know that you're supporting the Zaki bill.
Certainly reaching out to political officials and showing support is probably one of the biggest things that our viewers at home can do to help support this process. But are there other things that people in the community can do to help?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just spreading the word. I mean, we have information on our social media. If you can send that, let your friends know about this bill. This is, that would be super helpful and get the word out, because I think once they know about it, they want to support it. I mean, I think it's one of those things. And then just, being aware of food allergies and the importance of how it impacts families, and just being aware of it. I mean, I think that's also an incredible thing, even if it doesn't impact you personally, to be aware of signs of those that might have anaphylaxis and things like that. So you can be part of the community to help, when my kid goes out, and I feel good that my community, that something happens, that at least there's people looking out for him. Um, I think all those things are pretty beneficial to the food allergy community.
Well, with all that said, I'm wondering, because we're in the final couple of minutes of our program, if there are any final thoughts, Priscilla, that you or Zachy would like to share with our viewers at home.
You know, I think, yes. Well, I think more than anything, I appreciate, I want to thank you, Joe, for giving us this outlet. I mean, I think that this is a huge part of our ability to move forward as a community within the food allergy community, and to make strides, to create awareness and to change things for the better of those suffering with food allergies. So I appreciate you, and appreciate outlets like this. Zachy's been able to go on the radio and do a couple other different things. And I think that us talking about it and being aware of the seriousness of it is important. And I think that's one of the things that is really, I think I would want viewers to know, that continuing that dialogue is so important. In addition to that, like a message for other food allergy parents is, I think one time you asked me, like, what are the do's and don'ts, and I encourage those that are parents with food allergies, don't assume that people know what it's like to live with food allergies. They may not, so you have to explain it to them. That's why communication is important. Don't be afraid to ask questions for your child or for yourself if you have food allergies, because no question is really, it's true, no question is dumb. No question is not something that we shouldn't ask, because that's the only way we're able to inform ourselves. And I think I mentioned it earlier, but don't feel like you're alone in this situation. There are a lot of groups out there that can support you if you don't know something in regards to your food allergy journey. So I guess those would be the final words that I would say, is that, there's a community out there, and don't feel like you're in an island by yourself.
That's definitely some very wonderful advice. I would like to take this opportunity to say, Zachary, you are a very, very brave young man, and I thank you for joining us this evening. And you, Priscilla, are a very brave parent, and I appreciate you being here. As Priscilla Hernandez and Zachary Munoz, both parent and child advocates, thank you so much for joining us this evening, for sharing all this information, and for continuing your hard work to raise awareness. Again, for me, this show touches me on a personal level, because I would like to share this final thought, in that I too have been through having my child suffer anaphylaxis. And again, it happened in the very early days, before we knew, in fact, that he was truly allergic to peanuts. But it was a very severe reaction. And for those who have never experienced it, there are probably few events in your life as a parent where you feel more helpless than literally watching your child struggle to breathe in a room full of air.
Absolutely.
So thank you both again for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, and good luck in continuing this. I know it's going to go all the way, and we're looking forward to it. For our viewers at home, if there are topics you would like to see addressed on this program, you can email them to us at arroyolive@pasadenamedia.org, and we may include them in a future broadcast. Until next time, this has been Arroyo Live. I'm Joe Carbonetta. Thank you for watching, and good night.